we were flying in, and often when we did a combat assault, the choppers land before we landed. If we were going into a bad area, they'd blow up everything as we were coming in. Everything would be blowing up in the forest around you, artillery, airstrikes, whatever, and then they'd land us and they'd stop right before we touched down. But I remember going in. This was my first one like that. Somehow I got on the command helicopter and saw the guys doing this Catholic cross on his body, that the RTO, which usually understood what was going on better than we did. And the RTO, and I was in a command helicopter, like I said. Somehow I ended up on that, and I thought, man, we're going into it here. And we get into this place, and it's the most eerie place I've ever seen in my life. I think it was teak and mahogany or something trees, huge trees, and way up in the top were these big round nests of some type, I remember. And it was the most eerie forest I've ever been in. The whole time I'd never seen in my life. And so we were in this forest, and there was a lot of us that were new guys. First night in there, the guy goes out to relieve himself. He had to go outside away from the company to do that as quick as you could. So he goes out, takes a shit, tells the guard, or I don't know, the guard fell asleep or something. I don't know what went on there, but when the guy came back in, the guard was a new guy and he shot him, killed him. So all night this guy cried. You heard him crying all night long.
The guy who had been shot?
No, the
Or
guy that shot him.
the guy who
The
had
guy
been
that
shooting
the
him.
guy that was shot was dead,
Okay.
and the guy who shot him cried all night. So we're in this eerie place. He's crying all night. It's this surreal situation, and the next morning, all I remember is they fly this guy out, the guy that's crying, with the body. I see the body laying down as the chopper goes over, and he's sitting over it with his head down, crying, with the bodies down below him now, flying out. So that was what happened that day, that morning. And that day, I was walking point uh, for the platoon, and we get in. We're the last platoon in. There's three platoons, or four with the mortar platoon, but we didn't have a mortar. We had a recoilless rifle, 90 millimeter recoilless. But anyways, we're coming in, and we're the last platoon in, setting up a night defensive position, and we three of us get around the corner, or two or three of us. This corner we went around, and for some reason we went around. The company was spread out. I mean, behind us, the platoon, and three of us made the turn, and we got contact. So we called back in. Is there anybody out here? Do you have any guys out here? No, there's no one out here. Call back again. You sure there's no guys out here? The backup man's communicating this to me. I'm a little ways, 5 yards, 5 meters in front of him. And is anybody out here? Do we have any guys out here? No, we don't have any of our own guys out here. Went on and on 3 times, I think he asked them. No, there's nobody out there. Well, they sent out a cloverleaf patrol without telling us. No one knew. So as they were setting up, they called them cloverleaves. They go on these patrols where they go around the whole area, like a cloverleaf. I don't know why they call it cloverleaf, what they did. So they had a patrol out, looking for around the area. Nobody knew. There was no communication, which was often the case. And so we ran into one of this patrol, and they all of a sudden they stopped. So they'd seen us now. We saw them, they saw us, but you couldn't see. It was just, in the triple canopy jungle, things are so thick you can't see 10 yards in front of you.
Yeah.
Especially if you're laying down. But I mean, you can't see. And so it was real thick foliage. You could see something moving maybe a little bit. Mostly you just sense what was going on. But uh, I knew I picked out a target right away, and then they stopped, and so we're waiting. Get back. No, we don't have anybody out there. All of a sudden, the Vietnamese yells, "GIs, GIs!" Right? So myself and the backup man both opened up. He opened up on semi, shot 3 shots. I opened up on auto, 3 round bursts. And anyways, we killed a guy. Shot him in the lower body, chest, and right under his nose. And then right after, the guy that was yelling GIs was their Kit Carson scout that was with them, the Vietnamese scout. So he was letting them know we were GIs. And of course, we hear a Vietnamese yelling GIs, GIs, Of course, we thought it was the enemy for sure then when we opened up. So as soon as we opened up, then they started, yelling, you stupid motherfuckers, and all this was going on. And then they fired a grenade launcher at us, and luckily it went over our heads behind us. So they didn't open up, with their small arms, but somebody fired an M79 at us, went over our head. So, and after that, we had to chop out a pad to get the helicopter in to get this guy out, and they had a tracheotomy. That's why I know he was shot in the face like that, and the blood was going down his throat, and they had a trig. They had to do a field trig. I think someone used a pen or something. I don't remember for sure, and to try to let him breathe, couldn't breathe because of that. He was still alive at that point. And we had to cut a chopper pad, so I was involved in that, cutting the pad too, and cutting like a crazy man. And people were watching. Then he died, and people watched me like, how was he going to respond? This guy, cried all night. You know what I mean? And the day before, and they wondered how I was going to respond. And I didn't feel anything. I'd already cut off all my feelings. I don't know if it happened the night before or sometime. I don't know when I had no feelings, but I had no feelings for many, many years after that. Probably 10 years, or not quite that long. I had no feeling after Vietnam at all. So I was like dead, So I was already dead for some reason where I didn't have any feelings. So, but I acted like I did, had put my head down. It's just this crazy stuff. I'm just going to be as honest as I can. I acted like I felt bad and put my head down because people were all watching me, I know. And so I put my head down, act like I felt bad, but I didn't feel bad. And I feel bad about not feeling bad now. And I feel bad about other situations that went on too, the survivor guilt and all that.
You talk about kind of emotionally shutting down, and you hear this a lot from combat vets. But you said years later, it kind of, hit you. What happened? Um, what do you remember about that? Was it just something you woke up one day and, you know, and all of a sudden that event now was significant to you, or how did that go? The process of
I
process.
remember exactly where I was when it all hit me. I was, boy, I was driving down the street and a song came on the radio. Spill a Wine, Take That Girl by Eric Burden and the Animals. That song, the first time I heard it was there. Came out in early 1970 when I was there in the bush, and we were out in a night defensive position under a poncho, and with the guy, he said, "Listen to this, man." He had it plugged in his ear, and he put it in my ear, and it was that song, "Spill a Wine, Take That Girl." It's the first time I heard that song ever, and just driving down the street, song came on, and I just fell apart. I pulled over the side of the road, just sobbing. Everything hit me from all different angles. First time, that caught up with me. And this was about 1977 or 78, somewhere around that point in time. Everything hit me. I'd been clean and sober for several years by that point, but so I didn't have anything to mask the feelings anymore or help me sleep at night or anything. So I went to a group there at the vet center, and I thought, okay, let me see if these guys can help me with it. I went to a group. The first guy to speak talked about skinning someone alive. His buddy's being killed in this situation, and they caught one of the guys, and he skinned him alive. He used to be a hunter or something, so he skinned this guy alive, and it was just he was sobbing, everybody was sobbing, the group was, and I said, "Geez, how can I talk about my stuff after this guy went through that?" My stuff was nothing compared to that, so I never went to another group after that.
I'm sure as you're processing this, you're running through it. You're thinking, we checked repeatedly. Are there other U.S. troops out here? You think about, the fog of war. I'm sure
Yeah.
you run through all of that. I'm equally sure that that doesn't do a whole lot to alleviate the burden. Am I right about that? I mean, you can intellectually say, we did what we did and the fog of war is real, but obviously the burden of that is still with you. Is that right?
Well, yeah, you lose all respect for command, anybody in authority and command, because that situation, that's one example of many, many, just in the 3 months I was there. The backup man thinks that he did it, and I think I did it. So it looked like a shot pattern from a 3 round burst, but he said he thought shot 3 times, the guy was hit 3 times. And so I
Oh,
haven't talked to him, but through a third party that talked to him said he feels real bad about it, thinks he was the one that killed him, but I always thought I did because it was a 3 round burst shot pattern. But so both of us living with that.